So, there's a new MSNBC documentary that's got the online world buzzing. It's called Hubris, Selling the Iraq War. And here's a preview.
It all sounded frightening. It sounded like a threat to the very existence of our country. But none of it was true.
Biological weapons factories.
Weapons of mass destruction.
The smoking gun could come in the form of a mushroom cloud.
Join me for the step-by-step true story of the American government leading the American people into a war that did not have to happen.
Amazing. MSNBC has really dug into how we were all duped with lies and misinformation, all to support a war against a sovereign nation that posed no threat to us. You know, this would have been a great expose 10 years ago, before 1 million people were needlessly killed. And I'll bet my bottom dollar that there is a very important piece missing from Hubris. Glaring accounts of the corporate media propagating fake or outright staged events to sell war. It goes as far back as media itself. Remember that iconic image of Marines raising a flag over Iwo Jima? An image that came to symbolize American victory in World War II? Yeah. That was actually a second flag, and it's well documented that Marines had put up a smaller flag beforehand, only to be replaced with a larger one for extra dramatic effect. But back to this documentary. What would impress me the most is if MSNBC covered how the corporate media has served as little more than a propaganda arm of the U.S. government. And when talking about the Iraq War, nothing exemplifies this more than the now infamous toppling of the Saddam Hussein statue in Baghdad's Firdos Square in 2003. Incidentally, right across from that hotel was housed several Western news agencies that were running live feeds of the square. So, a group of Marines helped stage what would become one of the most iconic mission-accomplished symbols of the war. They wrapped cables around the statue and attached them to a military vehicle, while one Marine covered Saddam's head with an American flag. The same American flag that was flying over the Pentagon on 9/11. But the flag was quickly removed and replaced with an Iraqi flag before the statue was pulled down. A group of Iraqis are shown cheering in photos behind the toppling statue, which the media used to show as proof that Iraqis were happy to have been liberated. However, a wide-angle shot later released shows a very small group of people cheering on, obviously strategically planted, considering how the rest of the square was vastly empty other than a few confused Iraqi onlookers. According to researchers from George Washington University, the images of the statue toppling aired on Fox about every 4 minutes, and CNN played it, on average, every 7 minutes. But it wasn't only that these outlets constantly aired this imagery. Anchors like Wolf Blitzer and Britt Hume compared the event over and over again to the tearing down of the Berlin Wall and thus America's victory over communism. Yeah, because that's a fair comparison. Now, another famous example is the case of Private First Class Jessica Lynch. Allegedly, Lynch was captured as part of an ambushed convoy. And as the story goes, she was shot, stabbed repeatedly, held captive for 9 days until the most daring group of macho men rescuers whisked her from the clutches of her dangerous captors. Lynch came home a hero, decorated and made into a media legend. Just check out this cover of People magazine. And how about saving Private Lynch on Newsweek? There was a small kink in the story, though. It's simply a lie. Eyewitness accounts reveal that rescuers were met with zero resistance. And Jessica's health? Well, no bullet holes or stab wounds to be seen. In fact, doctors at the hospital where she was being kept actually tried to return her to the U.S. forces themselves on multiple occasions. But what did the U.S. forces do? Well, they staged a giant Hollywood-style raid of the hospital and turned the event into an after-school pro-war special about the purtiest, bravest, blondest girl serving. Lynch herself verified the truth about what happened under oath. See for yourself.
I believe this is not a time for finger pointing. It is a time for truth, the whole truth, versus hype and misinformation. I have repeatedly said when asked that if the stories about me helped inspire our troops and rally a nation, then perhaps there was some good. However, I'm still confused as to why they chose to lie and try to make me a legend when the real heroes of my fellow soldiers that day were legendary.
Yep, fake, fake, fake. And we all ate it up. You know why? Because it was on TV. And I'll just give you one last example of these acts of illusion propped up by the media to drum up support for war. And it may be one of the most absurd examples of all time. The horrifying testimony of a 15-year-old Kuwaiti girl who during the first Gulf War relayed the account of the murder of Kuwaiti babies by Iraqi soldiers. This testimony was pivotal in creating the outrage necessary for American intervention. Let me jog your memory.
They took the babies out of the incubators. Took the incubators and left the children to die on the cold floor. It was horrifying.
Oh my God, that's horrible. But wait, it's totally fake. The massacre never occurred. And you might think, wait, that's just not possible. She's just so convincing. Look at those tears. Well, this girl was actually the daughter of the Kuwaiti ambassador who had been coached by a PR firm to give a chilling and convincing testimony entirely based on lies. Look, guys, I know that it can be hard to accept that the corporate media is complicit in selling war. But if there's just one takeaway from everything I've just said, it's that you have to question everything. Because the media and government understand how propaganda works. In fact, they've perfected it. Because they know, as Mark Twain once said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them that they have been fooled.